Hi, I'm Mike Gant, and this is episode 14 of Biblical Living. And we've been talking about decision making. This will be the fourth of 4 episodes. And I want to refine that topic a little bit because, as it turns out, this is not, decision making needs to be more specific, because I haven't been talking about all decision making. I've been talking about what I'll just call marital decision making in the context of marriage. And that's decision making where you have an advisor. All leaders have advisors, and the more important your leadership role, the greater the quantity and quality of advisors you're going to need to help you make those decisions. Now, God has designed marriage such that there's one leader in the family, but he's given that leader a very capable advisor who actually is so capable that the two become partners in that most important role in life of raising children. And they are partners. There still has to be one in charge, because no one can serve 2 masters. There's got to be one in charge, but they are to work together the same way you see a couple on a ballroom dancing, in that the man is leading, but he's doing so gently and so discreetly that it looks like they're just doing everything, and the couple's doing everything in tandem. He's holding her hand and they're going around. It's all very graceful. And who knows, maybe it's just like a gentle, nudge of his hand, not even a nudge, just a slight movement. And she picks up on that, and they're just moving in harmony together. It's a beautiful sight, a man and a woman looking together. And so these 4 episodes have been to focus on how a man handles the advice that his wife gives him when he's got to make a decision, because he is where the buck stops. In other words, married couples who love each other the way God wants them to make joint decisions all the time. But they're not all, because they're 2 different human beings, they're not going to always see every situation exactly the same. And sometimes one will defer to the other for various reasons. Maybe one feels like the other has better knowledge of this particular situation. Maybe one feels like in this particular subject area, a different spouse. So it can go back and forth and change around. And they're making these decisions jointly. But if they've married well, and if they're loving each other as God, especially if they're loving each other as God instructed them to, they're just going to naturally agree on a lot of things. But there will still be times when they do not agree, when they don't think exactly the same way about what's the best way forward. And this particularly can happen when you're raising children, because it can be very, very frustrating, disheartening, discouraging. And in those situations, it's hard to get good advice. And when you get it, it's hard to be able to properly appreciate it and formulate an action plan for acting on it. But when the two cannot agree, when the husband and wife cannot agree, when they just see something different, it doesn't mean they're at enmity with each other, but they just can't see it the same way. One thinks, well, you need to do this with the child, or the other, and the other one thinks, no, don't do that, because that'll lead to this other problem over here. How do you handle it? And the answer is the buck stops with the man. There's no way he can take a joint decision and say, she made me do it. It didn't work for Adam. It's not going to work for any of us. We bear the responsibility for that decision, the rightness or the wrongness of it. So the goal, therefore, is to get as many decisions right as you possibly can. So this particular kind of decision making we've been talking about for the previous 3 episodes, and now for this one, are decisions where the wife is advising and the man's got to decide, do I follow her advice or do I not follow it? And in the case of Abigail and Nabal, we saw that Nabal was just a very, very foolish man. He had a wise wife and he didn't pay attention to her. He didn't seek out her counsel, and He didn't appreciate when she did use her own judgment. He didn't appreciate it. He didn't thank God for it. He didn't thank her for her faithfulness and admire her for her wisdom or compliment her for her wisdom. And he just made a real mess of things. And we compared that to the case of Adam and Eve, where Eve, unlike Abigail, was not giving good advice. On the contrary, she'd gotten herself in a situation where she was deceived by the serpent, by the devil, by Satan. She didn't intentionally do wrong. She wasn't intentionally disobeying God. But Adam had relayed God's commandment to her about not eating fruit from this particular tree. You could eat fruit from all these other trees, but you can't eat one from this particular tree. And she got confused by Satan. That might have been, maybe Adam did a poor job teaching her. He wasn't clear enough. He wasn't emphatic enough. Because remember, we read the passage and we saw that she was not created when God gave the commandment originally to Adam. So it was Adam's responsibility to teach it to her. And he may not have taught her properly. But even if he taught her properly, maybe she just didn't retain it. Maybe she didn't give it enough consideration. We don't know. We're not told that. All we're told is that she was deceived and she ate the fruit, and that Adam ate it too afterwards. Doesn't say what he said about it. All it says is that she ate it and he ate it too. So unlike Abigail, Eve was not a source of good advice, and Adam did follow her. So he and Nabal were mirror images. They were both misguided men, but the difference was they were mirror images of each other, because Nabal was getting good advice and wasn't following it. Adam was getting bad advice and was following it. So it sort of shows the two ways that a man can make a mistake in terms of receiving counsel from his wife. And you could study this in other places too in the Bible. You've got godly women and you've got ungodly women. Like, think about how King Herod's wife misled him and encouraged their daughter to request the head of John the Baptist on a platter. Or think about Ahab and Jezebel and all the evil that Jezebel put Ahab up to. And then there's godly women like Deborah, like Mary, like Elizabeth, and so on. So both men and women need wisdom, but in a marriage situation, the married couple have to act in concert so that the kids have a single voice to follow, a single pattern, and not getting conflicting direction from the two parents. And the man has to make a decision of when do I listen to my wife's judgment, and when do I say, no, hon, I mean, I respect what you're saying, but I just don't feel right about that. We got to do this. Because in the end, he's the one that's going to be answerable for it, not her, because he's the one that's given the responsibility of the family. She's right there with him. She's a partner with him all the way. She's absolutely of equal value, no question about that. But there's got to be order. And so the man has to know how to recognize wisdom. Even if he doesn't have it himself, he's got to know how to recognize it and recognize when it's not there too. So I hope these 4 episodes have been helpful to you, giving you some biblical examples to learn from and to go back and study and read about and become even more familiar with the details. But that's a great adventure to be on. To be married and to be raising children, it can be very, very challenging. Hardest thing you'll ever do, seems to me, but more than worth it. God bless you.